Hi, I'm D.E. Nichols, and here's my Nissan Frontier. It's had a lot of issues lately. This is my Bank 2 oxygen sensor on my Nissan Frontier. It needs to go away. How do I know it needs to go away? Because the fuel trims are locked and won't change. That's just one of the symptoms. Because the car is running in limp mode, because the oxygen sensor traces just aren't all that believable between, if you know the pattern of how a catalytic converter should make an oxygen sensor appear, that post-cat oxygen sensor can show you the pattern. The pre-cat sensor is not running right. I've already changed the one on this side of the engine. Extremely easy to get to. It's right on the top. Use like a 6-inch extension. If you had a 5-inch, you'd have even more space. And then you have to take the oxygen sensor off the plug that's underneath. It's like 27 or 32 millimeter. If you have a big 1/2-inch set, you'll be able to get it out of its extra socket in the home. That plugs in right there. And oddly enough, the blue wire here is where it plugs in to come all the way around down to here for Bank 2. I just took off the brake booster, use a little clamp on the hose clamp, and that gives you enough space to reach things. As far as the wire goes, there's these little clips that the wire sits into. Let's see if I can find you another example. You know, like one of those arrow pieces of plastic is sitting through this, for example, and you have to squeeze it to get it to pop out. That's what I did here. See, right up here. And that's what I had to do down there where the camera does not fit, even though it's a tiny camera. Oh yeah, you can see it there. You can see where I squeezed it with some pliers and pushed it through so I wouldn't have to break it, which is sort of silly because I'm replacing it. Now I just have to find a way to get my oxygen sensor tool way down there and see if it comes with the plug underneath like the opposite side does, or if the plug stays in. It's got like an adapter plug that takes it from oxygen sensor size to this big old nut. So it's kind of interesting how they adapted that. But I suppose it's twice as much luck that the oxygen sensor will come out without an issue. So yay, Nissan. Now, 32 on one side, oxygen sensor on the other. To get this off of the port that goes into the exhaust manifold, the oxygen sensor doesn't go directly in. It has a O2 sensor bung in between for it. When I first changed the other bank, I thought, this isn't the same oxygen sensor, oh no! But it was just because of this little bung on here. Put a little of the, I guess, copper stuff that comes with it on this side and this side, because these came out easy and they haven't been touched since the factory. I'm completely impressed with how easily these came out and how nicely they go in. What's kind of interesting is on the back side, it looks really rough. So it looks like it's been eaten away. Both of them look like that from the engine doing its thing, having a little bit unburnt fuel, burning more as it goes past it. But other than that, I mean, it goes in and out real smooth, so that's pretty nice. Thank you, Nissan. All right, so the oxygen sensor, oxygen sensor nut is the key. My old one, both of them melted, but one of them worse than the other. This should make it go together easy now. So Nissan part number 20607-P6500. Okay, and the other thing I figured out, is that it's a lot easier to get to it from the wheel well, which means putting a jack under it. Okay, so my new oxygen sensor, even though it says it's factory, it's not quite. It doesn't have the little connections that the old one has. doesn't have these little connections on it, but maybe that's because I bought it on Amazon for 80 something bucks instead of for $200 each. I bought two for less than the cost of one, but I don't think it's gonna get in that much trouble because the wire only has enough length to go exactly where it needs to, which is underneath the throttle cable, underneath your brakes, which apparently aren't attached. I can reattach those. Okay, and then they go under your wiring harness. They finally go back to where they click in quite satisfactorily, and which is not that far from where the other new one, Upstream sensor, right here. Okay. Yeah. So those go through there. Now, I worked some from above, I worked some from below. In order to work from above, a couple things you have to do. I made some space by moving some evap connections. I slid one of them over, and this one's really important for it to run right. I moved the truck deeper into the garage while I was getting that nut sensor, and it really doesn't like running with its brake booster disconnected. This is easier if you grab some pliers, but yeah, it's that simple. The new one, with, by the way, I recommend, even if you don't have a burnt oxygen sensor nut, to replace it, because it just, wow, that went in so easy. The other one was a fight all the way out because it was old and rusty. So I recommend getting the nut sensors, or the oxygen sensor nuts, at the same time, instead of taking it apart and discover you can't put it back together. That was horrible. A couple other things that I think was very helpful amongst my messy tray is I like this OEM oxygen sensor tool. It's got twice as many ways to hook up. That saves you time. It doesn't have a firm connection, which is good because you're constantly taking the tool on and off as you move it in that short, small space this truck allows you to move. So move it with the wrench, take it off the oxygen sensor, slightly turn it, repeat. And that's so much easier when this guy will just slide on and off without a fight. That's key. Okay. Now this is snap-on, this connection, so it would connect in nice if it was meant to. This is not meant to. That's what's that for. I've got other ones that lock in really well, and I think that's helpful under different circumstances. But if you have a very small arc that you can work, this is the one to get. It's OEM Tools 25249. All right, guys, let's see if I fixed the crappy. Oh, it already sounds better. It already sounds better. Okay. So bank 2 was saying, oh, I'm rich, and it would get stuck there and it wouldn't move at all, which is, I know, is not my truck. Okay. Now it's saying that it's rich. Now this is also pretty cold, so give it a second. I mean, it's been a nice day, but 60 degrees is not that cold, is it? My cold just makes it seem cold. That's a lot of math flow idle. But we are just warming up here. Okay. Starting to realize. Hold on, guys, for safety reasons, I got to get my truck back outside of the garage, so I'm not exhausting up the place. So I'll be right back to this. Yeah, I know that my Bank 2, the oxygen sensor I just replaced that one first, is staying rich. But it believes this oxygen sensor now, because the short term is actually adjusting. Before it was locked in and calling itself a real weak guy. And this one goes a little rich, and this one goes a little rich. Before, these weren't correlated. This was showing something else. Downstream, I know it goes through a catalytic converter, so it's a bit different. But when it's cold like this, it is not warmed up. When this goes up, this should go up to some extent. I know it's not exact, but you should have some connection between the two. And I am having a short term that's not locked into crazy. It's going back and forth, so this is good. Now, with lean and rich, I actually can adjust my spark plug gap to get that closer to zero. When my oxygen sensor, when I first realized my oxygen sensor was bad, I was like, I could hear my spark plug gap is off. So I'd adjust it back to stock, and I'd hear it off again. I'm like, what the heck? It's because when your oxygen sensors are sucking, your how much fuel is going across those spark plugs, believe it or not, will actually change their shape because of the heat and cool issues. All right, the big thing is going to be the test drive to see if I have power back, because my power was just wasted. Almost 120 degrees. That's Fahrenheit, yeah, so it's really quite cold. MAF is at least way down for idle. It should go a little lower, but it's not warmed up yet, so that's forgivable. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all I really needed to worry about. I am going to turn off my truck and let some of the heat get into the coolant that's just going out the tailpipe right now. Clean up my tools, and then go for a test drive. Okay, the fuel trims are better. They're actually responding. The MAF at idle goes really low now, so that's a good sign. Okay. Timing advanced is a lot more. But for mild acceleration, it says I have tons of MAF flow, which I know is garbage. And at tons of MAF flow, it says a little rich. Not too bad though. You know, my MAF might have failed as well. Might sound crazy to have so many failures all at once, but it takes consistent driving as when it was sitting, because I've modified the fake cold air intake into being a little bit real. See that light just turn on? That's my check engine light just turned on. Actually, the MAF, I think I had to do a relearn. I didn't remember unplugging the battery, but maybe I did, because the MAF is starting to read very different readings than it was initially. It's fascinating. Keep checking what time it is, because it's quite late at night for when I felt rested up enough to do this. Turn. Feels a little shaky at idle. My new water pump has a whine. I hate it. Should have gone factory original. And if you notice, my power is shot. I should easily have 90 horsepower. I'm lucky to have 20 to 50, so. I did replace a bad oxygen sensor. That part is true. I don't think I found the main problem yet, though. Because that MAF is just crazy. It's a lot less crazy than it was, but let me look at that. Trip MPG 11. Well, I think that app pretty much goes by the MAF, and if the MAF is as bad as I think it is, hopefully my MPG is not actually that bad. What do we have on the... Those are the old codes because I knocked off the MAF wire on accident. Refresh that. So definitely bad catalytic converters. I already knew that. That's nothing new. PO328. I just gotta put that wire back on. I knocked off a repair I did when I put too many tools on top of the engine. Alright, later. Okay. Now, this was stuck, and it's went as low as 5 during my drive the rest of the way back home, so that's quite encouraging. Okay. Intake's hot because I'm sitting still, no wonder there. That one now need a coolant. 6.7 MAF idle. I like that. By the way, the MAF started getting a lot less crazy. I think it was doing a relearn. Give it a little gas. It came up a little instead of a lot. I think it recalibrated quite quickly. Sorry, I got some tools knocking around, touching or something. It takes up another 10 degrees, comes sitting with it on. Okay. Truck's still not quite right, but it's better than it was. The only theory I got going for me right now is I think that the folks who had my engine timed wrong for the last 70,000 miles, I honestly think I need to go back in there and copy how it was, quote, little air quotes, wrong before, because I actually think that was right, and I think it liked that a lot better, and I think that's another reason why this is richer. But those oxygen sensors were way old. I see them fell around this time all the time. Now they're actually getting believable readings. They're getting a little flakier over the last year or so, so I'm not too surprised about that. Still needed to be done. And I like how the idle is lower than it's ever been, pretty much. What's my... I mean, my MAF idle is what I care about the most. What's my actual RPMs? That's pretty accurate. So yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. I'll go to bed when my head is foggy and sort out more of this later. It's good. Hey, be sure to get out there and work on something. Be sure to check out my 4 stages of oxygen sensor death to see how your oxygen sensor can misbehave if it's the sensor side, not the heater side. I didn't really go over that. That's very simple. Does it have 12 volts? Does it have ground? Does it eat current? It flips a code. That code turns on for that. As long as it's got power and ground, replace it.